Live from the Real Asset Queen studios in Kalispell, Montana, this is the Real Asset Queen Live, the one and only show about connecting people, process, and money. Each week, you'll hear mind-blowing interviews from top industry thought leaders, as well as actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your finances, business, or investing life. Please welcome your host, a former healthcare executive turned entrepreneur, investor, and efficiency expert, Michelle Kimbrough.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 33 of the Real Asset Queen. We have a fantastic guest today, and we're going to be talking about something a little bit different and how to build your wealth. We're going to be talking about land investing and actually how land investing can be a business in of itself. So we have Mike Deaton with us today. But before we get going, I just wanted to remind everybody that we are not financial advisors, consultants, tax attorneys, or CPAs, or anything else that fits that bucket. So anything that you hear on the show, please take back to your respective person and make sure it fits your particular situation. So our guest today is Mike Deaton, and he and his wife have been in real estate full-time since 2016. They are in multifamily syndications, and I believe that they have over 1,200 doors, but they are currently active land investors. And I thought that would be a great topic to bring because we haven't had that before. And land to me is like precious metals. There's not a lot of it. You can't produce more of it. So it's actually a great strategy to have in your investing philosophy. So outside of that, they enjoy making impacts on people's lives and helping them build wealth. So Mike, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got here, and of course, our signature question is tell us a fun fact about Mike that maybe other people don't know.
Sure. So yeah, our journey, I grew up pretty normal, middle America, your standard background. I grew up in a decent sized city right in the middle of Dallas and Fort Worth, went to college, had the mindset of you graduate with a degree, you get a job with a company, and you slog away for 40 years and save up enough money to hopefully retire one day. And that was pretty much my path for, I would say, 20 to 25 years. I worked in a lot of tech companies, focused on supply chain and operations. That's a lot of my background. My final company that I was with was Microsoft. I worked with them for about 5 years, from 2010 to 2016. And then, in 2016, I found myself out of work. So there was a round of layoffs. I was living in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Microsoft really didn't have a footprint in Dallas-Fort Worth, at least in operations where I was focused. And so found myself out of work. My wife also found herself out of a job in that same summer. Her company, she was working with a healthcare company, and they were relocating or consolidating their operations to their headquarters, which was not in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so, we were in this crisis moment, a little panicked, and our immediate reaction was, we got to get back to work. And so, we started working our networks. I went on several interviews, also with tech companies, and most of them were West Coast based. And, you start to question, or at least I was, what kind of company culture am I going to step into? Am I going to have to relocate? With Microsoft, I had my scope of work was really all of the Americas. So I traveled 2 or 3 weeks out of the month, visiting other locations in South America and across North America, and then trips to Europe occasionally. And so, quality of life really wasn't what I wanted it to be at that moment in my life. And so, fortunately for us, life aligned in such a way that we had a moment where we empty nested. I have two older daughters. They were both out of the house going to college. That was pretty much allocated and tuition saved to get them where they needed to be. So we empty nested. We had some savings. I got a buyout from Microsoft as well. And so, we had a moment where we could step back and really question what it was we wanted out of the rest of our lives. And it wasn't a W-2 job. And so we chose to get a little more entrepreneurial with our lives, and listening to podcasts and different interviews like this one, we came across a couple of people on different podcasts that had gotten into land as a way to earn cash flow and make money. And, the way they were describing it, they were making 100, 200, 300% return on their investment, and were able to build up a heavy stream of cash flow. And so we decided to take a look and pursue it. And in 2017, we officially, we allocated some seed money. We gave ourselves an amount of time to invest in starting up this business. And over the last 6 years, we've really built it into a great business. It's a cash cow for us. It's given us a lifestyle that I don't think we could have dreamed of. We've diversified since then. As you mentioned, we've also gotten into the commercial real estate as a way to diversify income, as well as provide some tax benefits through passive losses to help keep some of the wealth in our pocket. And it's been great. I mean, so yeah, now we moved to Colorado. We spent a few years in the Boulder area looking for where we wanted to park ourselves and plant some roots. And we love the mountains. We love forests. And so we found a great place here last year. And yeah, I mean, life has been great. So it's been a great journey, but yeah, I wouldn't change anything.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And that's an amazing journey, because I come from the corporate world too, and our paths are similar, it sounds like. So, I think when you're working for another company, you always wonder, is there something else out there that I could do? And why am I helping other people achieve wealth and not myself? And so I think we tend to look inwards and see if there's a better way or a new way, or innovate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell us a fun fact about.
Yep, I was about to get to that. I skipped over that. So yeah, fun fact about me, I guess. It's fun for me, but I love the outdoors and trails, and so I'm a big trail runner. I'm going to run my first 100-mile run this fall in August in Leadville, Colorado, which is the highest city in the U.S. So I'll be doing 100 miles at about 11,000 feet elevation, and I'm heavy in my training mode right now. So
Wow.
that's something else. This, being an entrepreneur gives you the opportunity to do crazy things like that with your time. So
I can't even imagine 100 miles. So that's off trails.
Yeah, it's on trails and some back roads, and up and over mountain passes in and around Leadville, Colorado, which is not too far away from where I live. We actually live at just under 10,000 feet elevation, so it's a good place to be. I'm acclimated. I get to do my training up here, so I've kind of got that checked off. But yeah, it's
Wow.
it gets me outdoors. I love it. I mean, really, there's nothing for me better than being out in nature. I mean, where we live here, we have every day, literally, there's about 12 to 20 deer that just roam our property, and then 35 wild turkey out here and stuff. So it's great. I love it.
That's awesome. Your place sounds like mine, because I have deer and wild turkey too. I
Nice.
love it. I just love it.
Yeah.
They crack me up.
Yeah, they're crazy.
Well, you'll have to keep us posted on how that journey goes for you next year. That's quite an undertaking. But you're right. You know, being an entrepreneur and generating your own wealth does allow you to do those other things. And you know, spending time with family is very important, and spending time outdoors and doing the things that make you happy. So I agree with you. That's amazing. So let's talk about land. You know, initially we were talking about land investing, but before we jumped on, you actually brought up another concept and actually looking at it not from an investing standpoint, but actually as a business. So, talk to us a little bit about the difference between maybe investing passively in land and running it as a business, and why we should even consider investing in land.
Sure. Yeah. So the way we got into it, as you mentioned there, is really more as a business. And so we are, if you think about house flipping, for instance, we are buying properties and reselling them. The great thing about land is that it's really all about finding properties and buying them at the right price point. And so we don't do any value add. We don't, drill wells or put in driveways or roads or subdivide or do any really type of development at all. We just simply find properties that we can buy at a certain percentage under market value, and we then resell that property at the market value. And so a lot of what we do is owner finance our properties to buyers, so it's more affordable, so people can pay, $250 or $500 monthly payment. We hold the promissory note on that for 5, 6, 7 years, and that cash flow comes in throughout that time. And then once that note is paid off, we'll then transfer title and ownership into the buyer. And so, for us, it's really about building a process of finding great deals, being able to buy them, and then market and resell those properties. And so it's not really, as you would think about, like maybe a multifamily syndication or some other type of investment. You're not necessarily handing over your money to someone and saying, hey, steward this investment and send me my returns. This is a bit more of an active approach. However, the active side of it is upfront, and even that can be run more like a business. Like if you were to buy a car wash or a laundromat or something, right? You can hire people to come in and do a lot of the work or all of the work, should you want to. I mean, we have time. I mean, it's my wife and I, we enjoy business. We enjoy being in control of the business. And so we are pretty hands-on in all of our ventures, be them multifamily syndications or other commercial real estate or this land business. But we employ teams so that we can get outside and enjoy nature. Or, here in April, we're going to go, my wife is, she's from Romania. And so we're going to go spend the month of April visiting her family and catching up with everybody. And, we're only able to do that because we're our own bosses. We have a team that can do a lot of the work for us, and the cash flow still comes in while we're gone. So the land business, the way we do it and the way we coach others to do it is a bit more on the active side. But like I mentioned, there's many different ways to run the business. You can be in the business doing it, or you can be owning the business and having others that support you and run things in that way. But it's great. I mean, well, I'll compare because I'm active in several multifamily properties, as you mentioned. Most of the deals that I'm in, I take a strong operations management role on the asset management side of things. Just it's my comfort zone, and I like being very active. But comparing the two businesses side by side, I spend so much time in the multifamily business because we have to interact with the property managers. There's no shortage of issues that come up. I mean, just last month there was a freeze in Texas where one of our properties is, and we have pipes bursting, and so we have to relocate tenants, get things fixed, approve additional budget and contingency monies to get things going. And there's none of that in land. I mean, quite simply, you find properties, you buy it, and you resell it. And the biggest drama that happens is if a client can't make a payment. And, we work with people all the time on trying to rebalance their notes or take action appropriately, but it's very rare. I mean, there's just really no land emergencies as there is in the multifamily. So it's a very low to no touch business model, and it's why we love it and really spend a lot of time cultivating that side of our business.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm also hearing you're kind of your own bank, right?
On the land business, we are. Yeah,
Yeah.
we very much are. And so that's one of the things I did want to touch on is all of the drama going on in the world today, right? We've got the Fed ratcheting up interest rates every time they meet. They're talking about a longer runway for, they're going to maybe smaller increases for the next year. Well, on the multifamily side of the business, part of our business model is refinancing or leveraging, and so deals get harder and harder to underwrite and to make a successful business case out of them. Land, we're setting our rates with clients, and we are our own bank, and so all of those macroeconomic factors that give headaches in the commercial real estate space or even the residential real estate space, we don't deal with those. We are more in control of that. Recessions, really minimal to no impact. When COVID hit, we were really full of anxiety, like most people were, that our business was going to dry up or people were going to default or whatever. And it was quite the opposite. I mean, there were so many people looking for property and so many people wanting to move out of the city or at least have something tangible that they could own and go to and get away. And so, yeah, land for us has just been a cash cow, and really, as I mentioned, it's a hassle-free way for us to have generated cash flow. And we second guess ourselves every time, like, with multifamily or storage units or whatever, we have, drama in those types of things. And it kind of gravitates us more towards the land business. The one, really positive that we take out of the commercial side is tax benefits, depreciation, and passive losses. And so that offsets really our income from the land side of business, such that we don't pay taxes many years other than kind of the minimum required amount. So, commercial real estate definitely has its benefits, and it's good to be diversified. And, this is a rough patch, and we'll go through that and things will be great. But yeah, land is, it's one of our favorite lines to focus on.
That's awesome. So, what are some key considerations if somebody is looking at getting into this as a diversification in their portfolio? What are some considerations when looking to buy land? What should they be looking at?
Great question. Yeah, there's really two main factors. And so as I touched on earlier, the core business model with land is really all about buying at the right price. And so, there's some technique around evaluating an area and making sure you understand what the comparable properties are selling for, such that, for instance, if land's selling at $1,000 an acre, well, you want to be able to come in and offer people $2,500 to $5,000 an acre, so that, or $250 to $500 an acre, sorry, so that you can then flip it at the market value and make your profit. And so, understanding a little bit your market, so knowing what are properties selling for today, what have they sold for recently. Size is obviously a factor, right? If you're buying a 1/4 acre piece of land versus a 100-acre piece of land, the comparable properties are a little bit different, but that's really the trick to it. And then, similar to house flipping or other models like that, we do a direct marketing approach. And so we find who are the landowners in an area, and we do a direct outreach campaign. And so out of 100 or 200 offers that we'll send out, we target to get around a 2% positive response rate. And so it's a low response rate, but we are, really making a pennies on the dollar type offer, such that we can turn things around. And, we find there are people that, for various reasons in their life, are ready to just, get rid of a property. A lot of times we try to solve problems for people. If they Maybe a spouse has passed away and they don't even know how to go about getting rid of a piece of property. Like, how do I work with the county to transfer title and make things? And so we have that skill set and we're able to help people out. Or maybe they have 8 people on a deed, and it's just more trouble for them to go around and try to get everybody to buy off on selling a property. And so we try to be problem solvers for people in that way. But that's really the primary that's the primary equation in the business model, is just buying at the right. They say in real estate, you make your money on the buy, and it's very true in the land side of business. You have to buy at the right price. Aside from that, it's really just being responsible and doing your due diligence. And unlike a home or a multifamily property, there's a lot less that you need to worry about. It's really about, is the title clean? Is there clean ownership on the person that you're going to do a transaction with? And that's, once you understand that, that's pretty easy to do yourself. You can also use title companies. There are independent contractors that'll do that kind of work. But that's really the biggest gotcha that you could have in this at all is, you don't want to find yourself buying a property that has liens against it, or that you maybe didn't do the transaction properly, such as there's a question down the road when you want to then resell it and those kind of things. But like I said, it's a simple business model, and it's really those two main considerations that could get somebody into trouble. But even then, aside from a lien or something questioning, we're not talking about huge amounts of money here, like a multifamily property or even a home. I mean, the properties that we choose to target are generally less than $10,000 on our purchase side. And so that was another reason when we got into this business, we were really attracted to it, because, the cost of entry is low and the risk is also very low. So, even if you make a mistake relative to other things, you're talking a pretty insignificant amount. And, the worst case scenario is you can't resell a property and you have a piece of property that you can then go use and camp on or do whatever. We've never encountered that, but a lot of times we try to envision what is the worst case scenario and going into something, and in order to reassure ourselves, and that's pretty much it.
So outside of, not having a clean title, what are some of the other challenges? And I shared with you that I'm actually looking at land and stuff, and there's
Mhm.
things like perk tests. Is the soil good for putting a septic system in, and where's water and utilities? So how does all of that come into this business model, or does it not even matter?
For us as buyers and resellers, we don't worry about that too much. Like, um, as a buyer, like you as a buyer, those are definitely questions that you want to look into. You know why you want to use that piece of property for what you want to use it for. So if you're building a house, then yes, you want to do the perk test for the wells and making sure soil samples are good and doing all that. But there are other people that just want a piece of property to go hunt on, or maybe they just want to camp on it, or maybe they just want to hold it and let it appreciate, or whatever. And so early days, we did go down that path of really trying to understand every permutation. But it ended up being, kind of fruitless for our business model. So,
Mm.
we don't, we don't even many times, maybe one time out of 20, will we actually even go set foot on a property. We do a lot of our work from home. We'll look at Google Earth. There are other county assessor tools that we can go and look at, what does a property look like? Is there road access? Different things like that we can do really from the comfort of our home. Now, a lot of the properties we buy and sell are in Colorado. They're not too far away from us. We will take day trips sometime and go out, but it's really just to get out and, get out in nature. And I have a drone that I love to play with, so I'll go take some videos and aerial photos and do things for marketing efforts. But it's not necessary. It's really just because we like it and we want to do it. So, for us, it's really about doing our due diligence more on the administrative side and buying right, and then We'll do some basic things like I mentioned. Is a property landlocked? Does it have legal access? I mean, those are things that, is it in an HOA or an LOA where dues may be, excessively high? Even then, we don't shy away from, I don't want to buy 100 properties in an HOA where I'm paying annual dues on it. And in the event that I'm not able to resell it. But a lot of people like HOAs and LOAs just for the fact that there is some level of maintenance or regulations in an area. And there's other people that don't. But yeah, there's very few things that really counsel us. As I mentioned, early days, we were overly selective about the properties that we would buy. Now we will almost buy anything if it's at a certain price, because there is a buyer for almost any piece of land you can think of, because there's just so many uses for it. And as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's really it's almost like a scarce or a shrinking commodity, even because ag companies are buying up properties. They're going into conservation, be it in a park or something else, right? It's definitely not an increasing commodity in any way. So there are buyers out there for just about anything.
Yeah, that's interesting. So talk to us a little bit about how do you find land? I know you said that you kind of do some research with
Mhm.
records and find people that have properties that fit your criteria, but what tools could somebody use to start looking for raw land?
Sure. Yeah. A couple of for us running a business, we look at it in a certain way. We look at areas where there is not only a lot of land, but many parcels of land, right? So, there are a few areas here in Colorado where um, large swaths of land have been subdivided into 5 and 10 acre parcels. Roads have maybe been put in. That's about it. There's no infrastructure. That's what appeals to us. There are other areas you can go to, like there's many counties in Florida where developers put in subdivisions, and there are just hundreds of parcels of quarter to half acre tracts of land that you can build a house on, that a lot of people go after. So if you think about a business, you want a good mix of supply and demand of your product. And so our product being land and parcels of land specifically, we look for areas where the supply is good. And then we go look at the demand side of things. And so we'll go look at county assessor websites and see if they're friendly websites. We'll look and see what has the sales velocity been over the last 12 to 24 months. Has there been one sale in the last 24 months, or has there been hundreds of sales in the last 24 months? So you get a feel for, is there interest in a certain area? There are other websites, you may or may not be familiar with them if you're out looking for land, but there's like Lands of America, Land Watch, Lands of Colorado. There's different, there are websites that sell properties, like Zillow even. People put land on for sale for Zillow. And so you can also do the same thing with those sites. You can go look at what is the cost of land that's selling. You can see how many sales there have been in a lot of the sites. You can see how many properties are for sale. You can get a feel for those types of things. So the first thing we really look at is that demand supply equation. And then beyond that, we will do a little extra work and look at, once we hone it down to an area, we'll start to look at what kind of things can you do on your property and what kind of things can you not do on your property. So most people looking for land, and you might be able to sympathize with this, being looking for land yourself, but most people don't want to be overly regulated on their land, right? They don't want the county to tell me I can't park a camper on it. If I do this, I have to have this. Or people want land because they want a certain amount of freedom. And so, we try to steer away from counties that are, tightly regulated. at the same time, I don't necessarily like counties where anything goes, because, you can drive out there and it'll be just a junky. There'll be people that have, old campers that are just rusted and broken down or whatever. I mean, that's unappealing to the masses. There is a certain demographic that does, appreciate that. But yeah, I would say really for us, so we have counties that we traffic in regularly, and we've been there for 6 years, and we love them. We do try to find a handful of new markets to get into, and those are the types of things that we will look at. But a lot of times it's when we started out, we were living in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and similar to a lot of people in real estate, there's a philosophy that you look in your backyard, you look in areas that you're familiar with, or you look in places where you have boots on the ground that can go do work for you, right? So we started thinking, okay, well, let's look around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so we found, properties were super expensive, or, one of the first counties we got into, Texas allows a certain amount of taxes to accrue over years. And so you would find people that had back taxes that were more than the land, and they're willing to give you their land. And in some cases that works. You'll say, hey, I'll clear off your taxes, just deed me over your land. Same thing with HOAs. And so now, now that we've found a few places where we consistently do great business, we try to find a new market here and there. And generally we'll just look around. Like I said, we love pine trees, we love mountains, and so we're drawn to that. We'll drive through an area and go, hey, I wonder what the land's like here. I mean, even in our neighborhood here, there's a lot of undeveloped land, and so we tap into some of the locals here and understand stuff like that. But it's really, and we coach others into how to stand up this business. And one of the first things we do is we look at what's your intention. Are you looking for longer term cash flow? Are you looking to flip properties quickly to pay off a debt or save up for something, or just amass a lot of cash quickly? There are different strategies for all these different kind of business models, and those strategies will steer you to different types of properties. We know people that buy and sell small properties out in Luna County, New Mexico, that you can sell, you can buy for $99 and sell them for a couple $100. For us, that's a lot of work for a little bit of transaction. So we traffic in a little higher dollar properties, but we have more means to be able to do that within our business. And so, there's many different ways to go about it, just because there is so much land and such a variety of use cases for all of that land.
Yeah, so it sounds like the barrier to entry is relatively low.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you don't need, to raise $10 million to go, buy a piece of land. If you're in a rural area that might be in the path of progress, or you see some development going on through your due diligence, and you can pick something up for, a couple hundred or a couple $1,000 and just hang on to it. And then sell it later. I mean,
right. Yeah. I would say in this business, you can easily get started for a few $1,000s. I mean, the bulk of your cost. So there's some sweat equity that goes into finding, an area that you want to, work in, and finding who are the property owners in that area. And those are not overly complicated. You can do it many times for free. There are also services that you can use to pay to get the tax roll, basically. And that's usually pennies per name. And then there's direct mailing cost, which is, you can say on average $1, right? You have the cost of a stamp, you have paper and an envelope. And there are services. I mean, when we started out, we did it. We printed out offer letters, we folded them up, stuffed them in an envelope, licked a stamp and put it on it, and sent out 100 of those a week. Now we have automated that to where, we will electronically send a file to a service that does all that work for you, right? You send a formatted file over to them, and they print out and send off all those offer letters and different things. But you can get started very inexpensively, and then depending on the land that you're targeting, it can be hundreds or a few $1,000s. You flip it. I mean, we rarely hold on to properties more than 30 to 60 days. So you can very quickly flip things. You can even pre-sell a property if you're so inclined. There are techniques to put a purchase agreement down with a buyer and then go work, or with a seller, and then go work with trying to find a buyer and really minimize the time there. So a lot of techniques, low barrier to entry, as you mentioned. You can get started very quickly, and you can just start doubling your money. And what we did was just reinvest that back into our business as much as we could. And it exponentially grows. So it's been great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So while I open it up for questions, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. But while I'm doing that, where else can people connect with you, maybe learn more about your coaching in this business model?
Yeah, great. So we, as I mentioned, coach others in the land business. The best place for that is flippingdirt.us. That will direct you to more information about what is land investing, how do we coach it. There's even some free tips on how to get started. It's not, as I mentioned, it's not overly complicated business. There are some techniques and there are some things that you want to learn ideally before you start doing transactions, filing warranty deeds, and making sure you do your due diligence. As I mentioned, we made some missteps in getting into counties that maybe weren't the best counties, but we love to help people get started in the business. It's such an amazing thing. And so flippingdirt.us will get you all of the information on that. You can find me on LinkedIn at, I'm Michael Deaton there, I think. And that's a good way. And then our multifamily business is Deaton Equity Partners. And so we do a lot of syndication there. And so if anybody who's interested in increasing their availability of passive income syndication style, we have an investor base there that we work with. We do a handful of deals a year where we invite investors to come in at $50,000 to $100,000 minimum. It's kind of your typical syndication entry point, but that's where we do that. And those are all great places to get in touch with me.
Awesome. So we do have a question, and it's around what's the first step in getting started, and what's the best tool or website to find raw land to purchase?
Yeah, good question. This is really one of the first couple of modules that we teach in our coaching is everybody asks, how do I find great land? And so, as I mentioned, we look at the demand supply equation as much as we can. And so I would say landwatch.com is a really great place to go. You can filter down and look at what are the available listings. And so, for instance, you can go there and you can pick Texas, and it will allow you to filter. Say, I only want to look at properties that are selling for $50,000 or less, or $25,000 or less. And once you kind of build in these filters, what LandWatch does a really nice job of is it will show you at the county level, the from greatest to least, you can look at what are the biggest markets or counties or even cities in Texas that have land for sale. And so some are obvious. Dallas-Fort Worth will most assuredly probably be the top market on there, although I don't know once you start applying your filters. But for me, that's oftentimes what I will do. And we look mostly in the Southwest, but you can really look anywhere that you like. And so, you can go to Arkansas, you can do the same thing. And it will show you a list of the counties that have the most property for sale. And so we'll generally take the top 3 or 5 counties that are getting traffic just because we like to have a healthy supply and demand. And so once you've picked a county or two, the best first thing to do is to go to the county assessor website. And they will typically have a lot of information about, the county charges people property taxes. And so they have a list of everybody who owns property. They know where to mail the tax bill to those owners because, they're collecting the taxes on it. And so that is typically where we will try first to get a list of who owns the property in the county. Some counties will allow you to download that list in an Excel format, which is gold. Like you can take that, you can sort it, you can filter it, you can use that to run your mailing lists and all those kind of things. That's a little bit rare. It's getting more and more. I mean, more counties are getting a lot more digitally savvy so that they have all this information. But beyond that, we have called counties and asked if they would sell us a list for $100 or $200. We've had a few counties that will do that. And then, as I mentioned, there are third-party services that collect that information, and they will sell you a list. You can go in and say, I want like datatree.com is a good service that has property owner records. Agent Pro 24/7 is another one where you can go. Generally, you have to sign up for some level of a package, and they'll sell you names for 5 cents a name or something, and then you can filter that down to however you want to scope in your list. I only want half acre to an acre properties. I want them to be street value of $25,000 or less, which, when I look at that, I think, okay, I want to pay $5,000 for a property max. And so, 3 to 4 times that is probably going to be the retail value. And so I'll look at properties that are 15,000 or 20,000 less as a county assessed value. So that's a lot of time, counties, they all have their own slight different methodologies, but generally they will give you a realistic sales value based on their comps. And then they have what they do, they do a formula based on whatever their property taxes is. They'll look at an assessed value. A lot of times they will, for instance, agriculture land usually gets a benefit. And so that will be for them to apply tax value to it. They'll drop the real price down. So they'll say, okay, maybe this property is worth $100,000 on the open market, but for tax purposes, we're only going to tax you $10,000 because it's an agricultural benefit, or they put incentives out there. But those are kind of the first go-to sites for me when I'm looking for a new property and trying to evaluate, or a new market and trying to evaluate, is it somewhere I want to go?
Yeah, no, that's great advice. That's great advice. Really good tips on how to get started. And I love landwatch.com. My gosh, I could spend hours on that just scrolling through it. It's so good. It's so good.
It's a gold mine for the business because, it has such a depth of information. You can also get, like, if you browse the listings, a lot of the listings will list what you can and can't do, right? It's zoned for this. You can camp for 6 months out of the year, nearby attractions. We really get a lot of information right there. And we'll use a lot of that in our marketing to resell properties and do things. So yeah, it's an awesome site.
Yeah, it really is. So, Mike, thanks so much for joining us and all of the tips. So, everybody, if you're interested in the land business, please reach out to Mike. He is just a huge source of information, and I'm sure he and his wife would love to have the conversation around it with you guys. So, thanks again, Mike. Any parting wisdom that you'd like to leave?
I would just say, I'm not sure, everybody's proclivities out there, but, for me, we found a moment in a window in time that urged us to take action. Ours was more of a burn the boats type of approach where we were thrust into that. But, everybody should have a side hustle and have cash flow coming in, whether you're a W-2 employee or an entrepreneur or something, it pays. And there's so many ways to do it. So I would just say, decide on something, find a coach or a mentor to help you ramp up faster and safely, and just take action. It's priceless and life is short. So, jump on it.
Yeah, no, that's good wisdom, taking action, because I think we see people that read and go to conferences and join this and join that, but they're in the same place they were.
I'm as guilty as everybody on that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. We will see you next time. Mike, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Likewise, Michelle. Thank you.
Bye.